Hi guys, DC Toyman again. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and thanks to those of you who have already subscribed. Sorry it took me so long to post this review, but I've been reading up on moral philosophy regarding Superman, and also figuring out my video editing software. I'm also trying to balance not having too much information or too little, so just comment if I have too much or too little information, or yell at me if my information is inaccurate. I'm also not up to speed on the new 52, so sue me, but not literally because I'm broke. So let's get into this figure. This is my first review for a few reasons. One of the reasons is that this is the first figure that I bought at Global Anime and Comics on Free Comic Book Day. He was also the first superhero, if you will. He started the superhero wave with Action Comics #1 in June of 1938. I like this classic look. It's just a basic blue and red. And this is the 2006 DC blue and red Superman. Superman's not a trendy guy. I'm not a trendy guy. That's why I don't have any Ed Hardy stuff. Those of you who do have Ed Hardy stuff can now lower your heads in shame. I also like the Jim Lee Superman for Tomorrow, Man of Steel, New 52 look with no underwear on the outside. But I also like this basic classic look too. His face looks a little bit like Reagan, Ronald Reagan, the president, not Bedtime for Bonzo. His chin is kind of Bruce Campbell-esque. He has a chiseled face overall. And I don't know if you can see the detail, but he has baby blue eyes with light reflections in them. The detail's very nice on that. You can see the light reflection in his eyes. He has of course, the Chris Reeve hair curl up front. I like that look, but I also like the Tom Welling, Henry Cavill, younger look. The cape is rubber, and it doesn't really flow well. It's more for display. The DC Comics superhero line of toys that I played with as a child had cloth capes for Robin and other figures who have capes, such as Superman. The capes came off pretty easily off the necks, but they also flowed really well. The boots are very detailed. I like that this boot is raised. It looks like it's actually raised above the leg, so it's not just painted on. So I like that detail. I like, of course, the articulation, his arms and his fist, and the DC Direct line. As you'll see with some of the other figures that I'm reviewing, their torsos even move for a little bit more expressiveness. You can pose them different ways. His feet are also articulated, but these figures that have the feet articulation can be a little bit difficult to stand up on their own. So it gets kind of tricky, and you have to pose them just right. And of course the legs and the knees are all articulated. So he's very posable. You can have him in a lot of different poses. I really like that about him. His arm and leg muscles are really well defined. It doesn't just look generic, if you will. His abs. The crest on his chest, again, I don't know if this detail is going to go through, but some of the paint is missing on the crest. But again, I bought this figure for maybe, I think, $5, so it was worth it. Moving on to Superman's abilities, or powers, he has super speed, he's super strong, he's invulnerable, he can fly, he has vision powers, so he has heat vision, or he can shoot lasers out of his eyes, depending on which version you're looking at. He has X-ray vision, he has freeze breath, and he has very few weaknesses. His main weakness, which a lot of people know about, is brunettes. He's also weak against magic, so magic can affect him. He's also, his weakness they show in the Man of Steel movie is just kind of loneliness in general, alienation. He is an alien after all. So he feels, very separate from mankind, and that can really make him feel alienated from humanity, even though he's trying to help us. Moving on to, of course, a more well-known weakness is kryptonite. And everyone knows that wait, hold on. Does he look different? There are different types of kryptonite, but I'll just kind of briefly go over the main types. Green kryptonite weakens Kryptonians. It's the main one that people are familiar with. But some Kryptonians can develop a tolerance, if you will, based on repeated non-fatal exposure to kryptonite or long-term exposure to the sun. And then there's red kryptonite. Red kryptonite was the original color back in 1949. It depowers Kryptonians for 2 hours, and in Smallville it has kind of a drug-like effect. But in the comics it has varying effects, so it's different each time they're exposed to it. It might have a drug-like effect the first time, but then the second time it causes hallucinations. In 1958 there was a Superboy comic in which he commented that it was kind of 10 times more powerful than green kryptonite. There's also gold kryptonite. Gold kryptonite strips Kryptonians of their powers. It basically makes them human. Superman used gold kryptonite on General Zod and his crew in a Phantom Zone miniseries. There was a pocket universe where Zod and his crew had destroyed their version of Earth, and Superman had to make a tough choice when there's no right answer, a tragic dilemma, and he chose to kill Zod and his people after they threatened to come to our Earth and destroy it once their powers returned. And because it was a pocket universe, there was no effect on Superman. Superman's enemies, he has one of the deepest rogues gallery in DC, along with Batman and the Barry Allen Flash. There's a lot of variety in each villain, and his or her abilities and their intentions or aims. Lex Luthor being his arch nemesis, but there's also Brainiac, Doomsday, General Zod, Darkseid. So there's a lot of variety there. And as far as major storylines in the last 20 years, the New 52's Clark Kent, I guess from what I understand, his parents died when he was in high school. The Kents died when he was in high school. But of course, the major storyline in 92, 93 was the death of Superman. And then of course there's The Dark Knight Returns. I don't know if The Dark Knight Returns started this or just reinforced this perception of Superman as the big blue Boy Scout. In The Dark Knight Returns, Batman accuses Superman of selling out because Superman works for the government. But the way Superman sees it is that he's sacrificing for the greater good so that he can continue saving people. Which leads me into the reasons why I like Superman, why I'm starting to gain a lot more respect for him. I like him because he does what's right, because it's the right thing to do. He grew up in the Midwest, so he has a good moral foundation to fall back on. He's not vengeful. Even though Krypton blew up, he came to Earth as a baby, so he thinks of Earth as his home. And I think for that reason, I think of him as Clark Kent and not as Kal-El. When the first comics were coming out, he originally fought bullies and wife beaters and things like that, but the publishers banned him from killing anyone in 1940. He admits that he can't tackle the larger global issues such as world hunger. And even though Lex Luthor is a little bit envious of Superman, he also doesn't like that Superman always saves the day, which means that humanity doesn't determine our own destiny. We're not saving ourselves. But on the flip side, Superman admits that he's not the real hero in the world. We all are. And for that reason, he stands as kind of an example of truth, justice in the American way, but more importantly, as has been pointed out, he stands for what truth, justice, and the human way should look like. He's an example that we can aspire to, not necessarily physically, of course, but in our moral judgments, what we can aspire to as a race. He's kind of a modern-day Hercules or a modern-day Gladiator. Moving on to Superman in television and film, George Reeves played Superman in the 50s. Everyone knows Chris Reeves' portrayal of Superman in the movies. Dean Cain played Superman on The New Adventures of Lois and Clark. Henry Cavill plays him in the Man of Steel movie. And Tom Welling played him in Smallville. What was I saying? Let's forget about him. Anyway, I like Smallville as a show because it gradually shows Clark Kent becoming more powerful versus starting out with his full power. Originally, I was hesitant to watch it because I thought it might just be 90210 with Superman, but it's actually pretty good. They gradually, like I said, show him gradually gaining new powers and new abilities. I also like that Lois Lane isn't this classic-looking Lois. My wife and I are in season 5 right now. Lois is a brunette with kind of blonde highlights, so she looks a little bit different than what we're used to seeing. I also like that Lois and Clark don't really like each other so far. It's kind of a weird brother-sister acquaintance relationship, but they just kind of tolerate one another. So there's an interesting play back and forth between them when they have scenes together. I also liked the Man of Steel movie and the 1978 movie with Chris Reeve. Clark Kent wants to beat up bullies, but he doesn't stand up for himself. He has to show restraint because he's concerned about who he might hurt, and he's also concerned about keeping his secret. So Henry Cavill and Tom Welling both also look like Superman. They're both 6 feet tall and up, and they also both are, muscular and defined, and they look like what you would think Superman looks like. And as far as the literature on Superman, it's pretty dense. I tried to condense it as much as I could. So I read up on, like I said, moral philosophy, and I think Superman's more of a utilitarian is what they would call it, and I tend to lean towards that as well, kind of making moral decisions based on what would do the most good for the most people. As I mentioned earlier with General Zod in the Pocket Universe, Superman faces tragic dilemmas where there's no right answer, but he just kind of uses his best judgment to help the most amount of people. And then also the Dark Knight Returns, there's definitely a for the greater good sense that you get from Superman. There are also religious parallels. He's this superpowered being from the skies, come to save us. I choose not to read into that too much, but it's there. There's also this element, sci-fi element. I mean, he is an alien, as I mentioned earlier. So there's definitely a sci-fi element where he came to Earth on a spaceship. There's also definitely this secrecy, definitely a shroud of secrets that he has to keep. Superman is Clark Kent, but he's also Kal-El. He's all three of them, and they're all aspects of who he is. But he has to have Lois keep his secret, but Lois is a reporter, and reporters uncover the truth. So there's definitely that dilemma there for her character as well. Clark has to, even though he's trying to do the right thing for everyone, he has to constantly lie. So that's definitely a juxtaposition in his character. So, in closing, I think they could have improved the cape. The feet, as I said, are a little bit to make it difficult to stand him up. But overall, he has good detail, good definition for his muscles. And also, he's just overall, they did a good job with this figure. Thanks again for watching my video. Like this video, comment, subscribe, or Superman will beat you up. Next up, I'm thinking of either doing Batman or Green Lantern, but again, the literature is very dense, so vote. Let me know what you guys want to see me do next, and I'll keep reading up on these guys, and I'll be ready to save the day again soon.